My sister's graduation should have been a day of celebration, a milestone for our family. But for me it became a public spectacle of humiliation, orchestrated by the two people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. My parents. We were all gathered at a fancy restaurant after the ceremony. The mood was festive, champagne was flowing, and everyone was congratulating my sister, Sarah. I was genuinely happy for her. Sarah and I have always been close, despite the 8-year age gap. She's smart, driven, and deserved all the praise she was getting. I was sitting there beaming with pride when my dad stood up to make a toast. He started off great, talking about how proud he was of Sarah, her hard work, and her bright future. Everyone clinked their glasses. Then, my mom, a little tipsy, chimed in. "And to think," she said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, we almost stopped at one. A few relatives chuckled. I felt a familiar knot form in my stomach. I knew where this was going. My dad, never one to miss a beat, put his arm around my mom and said, "That's right. Sarah was our perfect little project." Then, 8 years later, along came our little surprise. He looked directly at me and winked. Our happy little accident. The table erupted in laughter. It wasn't just a few chuckles this time. It was full-blown, hearty laughter. My aunt even patted me on the shoulder and said, "Oh, don't worry, honey. You were the best mistake they ever made." My face burned. I'm 20 years old, not a child. I've heard this joke my entire life. When I was little, it was just a silly story. But as I got older, it started to sting. It was their go-to party trick, a funny anecdote to share with friends and new acquaintances. This is Sarah, our planned child. And this is Alex, our whoopsie-daisy. They thought it was hilarious. I felt like a punchline. Sitting there surrounded by my laughing family, I couldn't take it anymore. The joke wasn't just about my conception. It felt like it was about my entire existence. It implied I was an afterthought, an inconvenience they had to learn to love. All my achievements, my personality, my very being, it was all just an extension of a mistake. I tried to smile, to play along like I always did, but the tears were welling up in my eyes. I looked at Sarah, hoping for some support, but she was caught up in the moment, laughing along with everyone else. I don't blame her. It was her big day, and she'd heard the story as many times as I had. To her, it was probably just mom and dad being embarrassing again. But this time felt different. The public setting, the importance of the occasion, it magnified the hurt tenfold. I felt small, insignificant, and utterly alone. I discreetly excused myself, mumbling something about needing the restroom. I locked myself in a stall and just let the tears fall. Why did they do this? Why did they think it was okay to use my existence as a source of cheap laughs? I splashed cold water on my face and tried to compose myself. When I went back to the table, the conversation had moved on. No one seemed to notice my red-rimmed eyes or my prolonged absence. I sat in silence for the rest of the dinner, pushing food around my plate, the laughter from earlier still ringing in my ears. Later that night, I tried to talk to my mom about it. I found her in the living room, scrolling through photos from the day on her phone. "Mom," I started, my voice trembling a little, "what you and Dad said at dinner tonight, it really hurt me." She looked up surprised. "What, the mistake joke?" "Oh honey, you know we don't mean anything by it. It's just a term of endearment. It just shows how even unplanned things can turn out wonderfully. But it doesn't feel like a term of endearment," I explained. "It makes me feel like I wasn't wanted, like I was a burden." She sighed, putting her phone down. "You're being way too sensitive, Alex. It's a joke. Lighten up. Your father and I love you just as much as your sister, you know that. Why do you always have to make things so dramatic?" That was it. Too sensitive. Dramatic. The classic dismissal. My feelings weren't valid. They were an overreaction. There was no point in arguing. I just said goodnight and went to my room, feeling even worse than before. My hurt wasn't just ignored, it wasn't validated. The next morning I packed a bag. I couldn't stay there. I needed space. I left a note on the kitchen counter. "I need some time to think. I'm staying at a friend's house. I'll call you later." I didn't want a big confrontation. I just wanted to escape the place where my feelings were a punchline. I went to my friend Chloe's house. As soon as she saw my face, she knew something was wrong. I broke down and told her everything. She didn't tell me I was being sensitive. She just listened. She said, "That's not a joke, Alex. That's just mean. Your feelings are completely valid." Hearing that from someone else was like a dam breaking. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't too dramatic. A few hours later my phone started blowing up. My dad called, then my mom. I ignored them. Then Sarah texted, "Where are you? Mom and Dad are freaking out. What's going on?" I decided to call her. I told her the whole story, how the joke had always bothered me, and how last night was the final straw. At first, she was a bit defensive of our parents. "You know they don't mean it, Alex. It's just their weird sense of humor." "But it's not funny, Sarah," I insisted. "Imagine if every time you were introduced they said, 'This is Sarah, the one we actually tried for.' How would that make you feel?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I guess I never thought of it like that," she said, her voice softer. "I'm so sorry, Alex. I was laughing too. I'm a terrible sister." "You're not terrible," I told her. "You were just used to it, like I was supposed to be. But I can't be anymore." We talked for a long time, and for the first time I felt like she truly understood. She promised she would talk to our parents and make them see how hurtful they'd been. Later that day, I got a text from my dad. It wasn't an apology, not really. It was more of a command. Your mother is very upset. You need to come home so we can talk about this. I knew that talking about this would just be another lecture about me being too sensitive. So, with Chloe's and Sarah's support, I decided to set a boundary. I texted back, I will come home to talk, but only when you are both ready to listen to my feelings without dismissing them and to apologize for hurting me. Not for making me feel hurt, but for what you actually said and did. It took 2 whole days. 2 days of tense silence and short stilted texts. Finally, my mom called. Her voice was quiet. Alex, she said, your father and we've been talking, and Sarah, ... She helped us see things from your perspective. We're sorry. We are truly, truly sorry. We never wanted to make you feel unwanted. It was a stupid, thoughtless joke that went on for far too long. Can you please come home? It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. It was the first time they had ever offered a real apology without any buts attached. I went home that evening. We had a long, difficult conversation. There were more tears, this time from all of us. They admitted they had been so caught up in their funny story that they never stopped to consider my feelings. They promised, sincerely, that the mistake joke was officially retired. It's been a few months since the graduation dinner. Things are better. It's not like our problems are magically fixed, but a line has been drawn in the sand. I'm learning to speak up for myself sooner, and they are learning to listen. The joke hasn't been mentioned once. Sometimes, healing a family isn't about forgetting what happened, but about learning from it and finally feeling heard. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's a reminder that your feelings are always valid, even if people try to tell you otherwise. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content. See you next time.